Before we take the roll, John, would you like to identify those on the WebEx?
Good evening, this is John Myrtle. I'm just asking for commissioners that have called in remotely. I see Commissioners Adel, Anderson, Desai, LaChance, Magnan. Are there any other commissioners that have called in on a phone number or remote on WebEx?
Commissioner Lester, WebEx.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thank you, John. John, will you call the roll?
Curry?
Here.
Adel?
Here.
Anderson? Anderson?
Here, sorry, I was on mute. Here.
All right, thank you. Avedisian?
Here.
Pisano?
Here.
Buell? Bush?
Here.
Desai?
Here.
DeBella?
Here.
Drake? Gale?
Here.
Pardo?
Here.
Gentile?
Here.
Healy?
Here.
Hoffman?
Here.
Oheb? Holloway?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
LaChance?
Here. Here.
Lester?
Here.
Lewis? Magnan?
Here.
Mandyke?
Here.
Maniscalco? Payne?
Here.
Patel? Salemi?
Here.
Stuber?
Here.
Taylor?
Here.
Tierney?
Here.
Torres? Wolf? Carrier? We have a quorum.
Thank you, John. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Torini, would you please come forward to be sworn in?
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that you will faithfully uphold, according to law, your duties as a commissioner of the Metropolitan District of Hartford County to the best of your ability, so help you God. Congratulations.
Are there any commissioners here that did not attend the organization committee meeting? Okay, just give you a quick rundown of Commissioner Torini. 36 years in East Hartford. He's the vice president of a family-owned business, married 10 years, 4 children, active in the community. He's a Board of Education member, PTO president, and various other organizations. So I think he'll be a good fit for MDC. Thank you. Okay, next is approval of meeting minutes of January 13th, 2025. Is there a motion?
Move adoption.
Second. Here.
Any changes, additions?
I have,
deletions?
I like to.
Mr. Lemmy?
Yeah, I want to offer a comment on a correction in the minutes.
Okay, please.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, on an item in the minutes reported as report from Chief Executive Officer. So this was after the meeting was recessed. I came back for about 15 minutes and came back again at, according to the minutes, at about 6:17. You allowed, Mr. Chair, you allowed Scott to speak, but it reports here as a report from the Chief Executive Officer. I don't think it was really a report from the Chief Executive Officer. I think it was Scott's comments. He got the floor to make those comments under the report from Chief Executive Officer. So I suppose you could say he had the floor, but the comments themselves, they're described here as stated that he felt he must respond to certain actions by Commissioner Taylor. So this is a characterization of what he said, not what he said. And I don't know if anybody will remember, but I did try to get the attention of the chair, and I felt that, you know, what Scott said, I mean, he has, there's a forum where you can say that, but it's not during the district board meeting, and it's not during the report from a chief executive officer. And Scott's not a member of the body, so he has to get he actually has to get recognized so he can speak. Well, he got recognized by, under the chief executive officer report thing. But what he said, and he spoke for about 20 minutes, Scott, I'm sure you know, and we all remember,
I mean-
he spoke for about 20 minutes.
Commissioner Salemi, if you want to change it and there's no objection or in favor of,
Well,
we can change it under,
Well, what I want to say is that I
Comments.
tried to get the floor, Mr. Chair,
oh,
to say that I believe that he was out of order. And 6111 of Robert's Rules of Order prohibits a member, and certainly a non-member, from speaking directly about a member, another commissioner, using their name and, actually saying what he thought their motivations or intentions were. So, like I said, there is a forum for him to do that, but I don't think that the minutes accurately reflect what happened. And also don't reflect that the floor was given to Commissioner Taylor after his comments, and they don't say anything about Commissioner Taylor's responses. So I don't know how to correct them, but I just think that they should be corrected. I don't think they're accurate. Thank you.
thank you. Any others?
Move to approve the minutes.
All right, Commissioner?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It was already a motion.
Sorry, second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Next, public comments relative to agenda items. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the board? Excellent. A new item on the agenda, number 6, independent consumer advocate comments and questions relative to agenda items. Thank you very much for coming. Next, reports from district chairman. Okay. Earlier last week, I think it was Thursday, I had an opportunity to meet with the presidents and vice presidents of the 3 locals and just a general conversation. Try to do that once a year. And just broad based, we talked about issues, they talked about issues. And I can't see that far. Is there anyone, any of the presidents or vice presidents here tonight? Super, stand up and identify yourself, please.
Rodney Andrews, Local 3713, President.
Chris McClellan, Local 184 President.
Ricky Dorman, Local 184 Vice President.
Okay, thank you very much. And I did invite them here to view the presentation tonight. Presentation we're all anxious to hear because we all are sitting here waiting to find out what the results are. I have one other thing on the agenda, and if you all can recall, you were gracious enough to authorize me to select a member of this body, a commissioner, to serve on the negotiations committee. And in regards to that, the chair appoints Commissioner Cal Torres. Commissioner Torres has served in government management positions for approximately 3 decades working with employee unions. This experience has given Commissioner Torres a vast working knowledge of the rights and responsibilities of both labor and administration as stipulated under the terms of union contracts. As an elected official, Commissioner Torres worked to guide the Hartford Personnel Department to successfully revise the police contract in the areas of overtime, pensions, and retirement. Commissioner Torres' work history in dealing with unions and his understanding of contractual obligations allowed him to be successful at all Labor Department hearings. Commissioner Torres has been both a union member and administrator throughout his career, and he understands that negotiations are a give and take process that takes into account fairness, needs of both management and labor, and other legal requirements as stipulated by law. Taking into consideration Commissioner Torres' background and with his knowledge that as a commissioner, he has always acted in the best interest of MDC, I'm pleased to appoint Commissioner Torres as a member of the MDC Negotiation Committee. Thank you, Cal. And I understand there's a meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. All right. Move on now to report from Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be quick. I know we got a long night here. I just want to thank, as I mentioned at the last board meeting on the 13th, we were having a historic agreement signing with the City of Hartford Mayor and ourselves, MDC, for the MS4 MOU agreement. And I said this then, and I'll say it again. This is historic because it's never been done before. We've never, EPA, in their words, have said there is no co-application for an MS4 permit in the country. And Hartford and the MDC is the only one that has done this. So this is nothing but a benefit to the community. The street flooding issues associated with catch basins and clean the streets is resolved. And we're very happy working with the mayor's administration, the mayor himself, and the staff. So I would like to thank Chairman Curry, Commissioner Hoffman, Commissioner Bush, and Diane Lewis, Commissioner, who has a guest tonight. Would you like to introduce your guest?
This is my granddaughter, Calliope Perez.
Very nice. So thank you very much for that. And that truly is a historical event. We've been talking a lot about development in the city, and we've been working hard with a development we refer to as Bushnell South, and this is really Capitol Avenue, the old parking lots of 165 Capitol and Trinity Street. About 1,000 apartments amongst 5 or so developments. We've been working with CRDA to develop an MOU, as I mentioned, at BPW. And the plan is that instead of these individual developments building storm retention systems under their parking lots to comply with stormwater management requirements from the city and or the state, why don't we join together and build a storm pipe in the street in Capitol Avenue and Hudson and Buckingham and save the developers that money. We don't just save developers money when they don't have to put retention in underground. They increase their footprint so they can put in more apartments. So the estimate is about $1.4 million from the developments on how much it would cost them to put this retention system in. And we have settled an agreement. Ours was about 2 million and change. We settled on 2 million. So the developers through CRDA and OPM, we have a draft agreement. It needs to go to BPW, it needs to go to the full board. But we're working towards developing this agreement that would give the MDC $2 million to build a storm pipe separation project, which would be about $4 million. And the MDC will have to do this at some point in time. It's just that it's not on our priority. It's not on the clean water project list. It's not part of integrated planning. So it's a win for the MDC. It's a win for development. It's a win for the city. Like I said, 1,000 apartments means a lot of sale of water. And we're getting almost 50% from the development. And then not to say we're also going to be receiving, it's a clean water CSO project. So we'll be getting grant monies from the state of Connecticut. So that's a huge win. We're working towards that. And one more.
Chairman?
Yeah, so wait a minute, are you finished?
No, I got one more, but
That one, okay, I'll come back.
okay, and that's fine. And then one more. I've mentioned this at the BPW, and then a full board approval in March of 2024. We brought to you a lease option. A fuel cell company wanted to lease land from us down at the Brainerd Road. They had initially got approval from the state PURA to build this facility, 8 megawatts on Homestead Avenue, only to find out and realize that they don't have enough gas there and volume and pressure. So they came to the MDC. The board and BPW approved us moving forward with an option to lease. They received approval the first thing they needed to do was get that option to lease, and then they had to go back to Pura and try and get the project moved, because it was site-specific, moved from Homestead to Brainerd. They achieved that goal. We're working with Crestone Council and our staff to finalize the lease again, which will have to come back to BPW and the full board. And this is about 32,000 square feet, less than an acre, 3/4 of an acre. The revenue is 375,000 plus or minus per year for 20 years. It's a huge win for us. I think Commissioner Torres, or it might have been John Gale, asked, what about taxes? Well, they're leasing property from us, but they would have to pay taxes to the city of Hartford. I have no idea what those taxes would be, but we will be bringing this to BPW, Chairman Hoffman and Commissioner Hoffman, and then to the full board for your approval. And that's my report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Can I just ask a question, Al? Yes, Scott, going back to the Hudson Street development, is the state of Connecticut part of that? Are they going to pick up the piece? Aren't we in a lawsuit over that issue? Did you resolve that too in the process?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we tried to resolve that, and it didn't work. So I talked with CRDA Mike Freemuth, and one of our goals was we have a lawsuit, as you know, about the Buckingham Street garage and the groundwater that's being discharged to our system, and they owe us. I don't even know what the number is, but it's about $50,000 a year. And they are not paying us, similar to the landfill. So what I asked Mike to do was, prior to Christmas, just before Christmas, try and wrap this up. Partly why their estimate is 1.4 million and we've asked for 2 million is because there's about $150,000 that would bring a storm pipe to the garage and connect the garage. So the plan is we want to do that because we want to stop the bleeding. We don't want this stormwater going into our sewer system. But we tried to negotiate that we would have some resolution with what the state owes us as part of the lawsuit. Mike came back to me after the holidays and said, no go, OPM was not willing to negotiate that. So we removed that out of the agreement. Chris Stone is working and moving forward with his lawsuit. I think Chris can talk about this, but I think he combined both lawsuits. So we've removed it out of the agreement, the MOU, but they're paying us to connect the garage, about $150,000, and it's a win-win for our combined sewer system in the area. But it doesn't resolve, to your question, it doesn't resolve the ongoing lawsuit. And so we'll have to work through that with Chris Stone District Council.
Any other
It's
questions?
still part of the lawsuit.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you. Scott, I just wanted to say, you don't probably hear this enough, but, we've been having various main breaks in Windsor, and we had another one last week, 2 of them. And I just want to thank you and your crew. You guys were out there, 4 o'clock in the morning. They did a great job. They got it done with very little traffic issues and so forth. And I just want to say it was great. And thank you very much for the hard work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And before we move on to District Council, I would just like to let everyone know that we have 100% attendance tonight, either here or on WebEx or on the phone. So that's excellent. And Diane bringing her granddaughter here reminded me that our newest commissioner, Chris Torini, I served with his grandmother before he was born on the Board of Ed. So it all circles around. Welcome, Chris. All right, move on now to District Council. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, and I apologize for not being there tonight. I have the flu, and I didn't want to bring that with me to the meeting, so I'm working from home today. First of all, just to pick up on what Scott was referring to with the landfill and the Buckingham Garage lawsuits, they have been combined in the complex litigation docket. We had an assigned judge, Judge Wilson. Judge Wilson just recently was elevated to, or nominated to be elevated to the appellate court. So we've lost our judge temporarily. A new judge will be replacing her as our target person for these files. So the scheduling order is going to be maybe changed depending upon the new judge. But as soon as I get the scheduling order, I'll make sure that everyone knows about it. Secondly, we've closed out the collection activity files for 2024. I just want to give you the updates on the numbers. And by the way, these are rolling numbers. So what I'm going to talk about is what we collected in 2024. Part of that collection was for files that were assigned prior to January 1, 2024. They're files that are primarily in receivership, and there's still delinquencies. So long as the delinquency remains, the receivership continues and monies continue to be collected. So just very briefly, for 2024 on new files, there were 176 new collection files assigned to counsel, combined value of $848,000, $850,000. In addition to, they collected of that amount $794,000 and an additional $204,000 in attorney's fees. So, as you know, we've started a process whereby the delinquent ratepayer is responsible for the attorney's fees, not the MDC. So that total for that year was for between attorney's fees and water bills, $998,000. Now, some of 2024 were old files that continue to be active. Those predate obviously 2024. Most of them are in receivership. We collected $2.3 million on those, and attorney's fees of $173,000. So you'll see that the collections are vibrant. These are primarily cases which there's multifamily homes or multi-unit businesses, condos, etc., that we don't have the right to shut off. Obviously, a single-family home, the collections are pretty high. Collection rate is pretty high because of our shut-off policies. But these are different. These are handled differently. But the return has been very successful over the past several years. Finally, we received word. I sent out to each of you just an update on the Colebrook situation. We had sent out a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers just after the president signed the WERDA bill, and that became law. We received a response from the Army Corps of Engineers today, confirming that they've received our letter. They're preparing a packet for at their regional office for the removal of or termination of the MDC's contract from the Colebrook Reservoir. So that's moving along apace. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. If anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to respond.
Commissioner Salemi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For a question for District Council, I want to make sure I understood what you said, Scott, which was on the garage, that they're going to pay to connect it to the storm-only sewer. Is that correct? Or they're going to contribute $150,000 to it, or what?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So the estimate for the, so how we've handled these developments, and we did the same thing with Arrowhead, and the same thing with other developments on Woodland and others, is whatever the cost the developer has to incur to comply with state, DEP, stormwater, and or city stormwater management issues, we've said, give us that money, and then we'll jointly build a storm pipe so that you don't have to dump new stormwater into an old CSO pipe. So in the 5 developments, their consultant, Langland Engineering, said that that's about $1.4 million. And we think it's a little more, but the long and short of it is we think to connect up Buckingham to the garage is an additional $150,000. So within that $2 million is that $150,000 to connect the garage. So they're paying for the connection of the garage. What they're not paying for is the back fees associated with discharge. And we're going to leave that to Chris Stone, District Council, in the legal process. But at least it stops the bleeding for both of us, the state and the MDC. We don't continue with that stormwater coming into the system, which is all positive. And like I said, it's a win-win for everybody.
I thank you, Scott. And I think that, so my question is for the district council, for Chris, and just so everybody knows, I think they did pay these fees. They agreed to pay these fees. They signed a permit application, agreed to pay these fees. This isn't like the landfill where they never agreed to pay them. This is where they actually agreed to pay these fees. And they paid them for, I don't know, maybe 2 years, maybe?
Two and a half years, something like that.
2.5 years. And so I'm just curious, because there's myself that was involved in this project as a deputy commissioner of DAS. And we also have another commissioner who was involved in it, working for DAS at the time. What's their story about that? I don't, I mean, you got to go to court with it. So what's their story? I mean, I can't imagine what it would be, because they agreed to pay it.
Their story, I mean, as ridiculous as it may sound, their story is we shouldn't have paid. No, that's their story, that we should not have paid. Our mistake, but we don't want to, continue that mistake. And what you're hitting on, Commissioner Salemi, is one of the primary distinctions between the Buckingham case and the landfill cases. Quite frankly, there was an agreement and an acceptance of the landfill of the groundwater discharge fee by the state of Connecticut, by DAS, and the contractor. I think Gilbane was the contractor at the time.
Right. Yep.
Gilbane paid the fees for a while. The contract was over. Gilbane left the site. The state continued to pay for another period of time, and then they finally, for whatever reason, they decided that it was too much and they shouldn't have been paying it. And again, I don't ask me to defend the state on that.
I'm not.
That's their.
Not
That's their. I know that. I know, but that's their
What's their
position.
story?
That's their position. That's their story, and they're sticking to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Between the two reports from Scott and from Chris, I think it's apparent that MDC and the city of Hartford have built a much improved working relationship. But, we give credit to the mayor and to the mayor's direct reporters and his staff. But the Hartford commissioners sitting around this room, I'm absolutely positive that you've also had a play in improving those working conditions between the two of us. So thank you for that. All right, here we go. Number 10, report from Amazing Workplace, Employee Climate Survey. And you'll have to forgive me because I do not know the name of the individual that is coming on.
Yes, hi, I'm Eli Justman from Amazing Workplace, and it's a pleasure to be talking with you today, Mr. Chair. Thank you for recognizing me. Thank you for inviting us over. Can I just get, Mr. Chair, confirmation that everybody can hear me and see me okay?
We make it.
Yes, we can.
Yes. I would like to, let me interrupt you just a second. Before we begin this presentation, if any of us has a question, jot it down. Let's let him go through the complete presentation because your questions may be answered as he moves from one area to another. So let's save our questions until the presentation is completed.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Get going on the presentation. And there we go. Mr. Chair, so thank you again, and thank you to all the members of the commission for having us here today. I appreciate you. I appreciate getting into this very important work. Thank you to all the employees who participated and have cared about this process throughout. Thank you to everybody, other stakeholders, people who are interested in this process, that it's important to them. I just wanted to recognize you as well. I know a lot of people are listening, and there will be more follow-up communications about this that are going to be important to people. So I just wanted to acknowledge everyone up at the front. So again, I'm Eli Justman from Amazing Workplace. I do have a couple of my colleagues here. I don't know if they're on camera or off because I can't see that right now. But I've got Laura Senna, who's on the team that helped run this survey process for you, and Mackenzie Noble is here as well. And again, I'm the client success executive for the MDC survey. A little bit of overview of what we're going to talk about and what we're going to run through. I'll talk about who we are and the background of our work with MDC. So there will be a little pause before we get right into the results. Then I will talk about the results of the survey, and I'll be noting the areas that are going well and the areas that have room for improvement. Then I'll get into some of the actions that we recommend for MDC. And finally, I will be answering questions as permitted by the chair. So, Mr. Chairman, I will obviously defer to you if for any reason you need me to pause, and then I'll be listening for your cues when we get to questions. All set? All right. So going to the first slide, a little bit about who we are, Amazing Workplace. We're a provider of third-party anonymous surveys through a dedicated online platform. So surveys is really a big specialty of what we do, providing a channel for employees and all the stakeholders of an organization to be able to communicate about what things are like at work. That's our specialty. And we like to see ourselves as a trusted third party who comes in to administer this type of instrument. Our purpose as an organization, Amazing Workplace, is improving people's lives. So we do this by helping workplaces understand how employees feel. We'll be talking about that in depth, and what is needed to make work better. So we accomplish our purpose of improving people's lives by improving life at work. Amazing Workplace is the only provider that measures employee happiness. Some people might be wondering why we talk about it in terms of happiness, and I'll get into that a little bit more later on in the results. But one thing that stands out about us is that our guiding star is happiness. We don't talk in, sort of technical terms like engagement or things that are a little mysterious. We like to relate to people in terms that they can express easily, how happy they are about something, whether they're unhappy. We work with organizations across all industries, businesses, nonprofits, governments, lots of local governments. This is a unique organization that I'm working with here today. Pardon me, the MDC is really almost one-of-a-kind organization in the country, and it's been wonderful getting a chance to work with you. So getting to that, in fact, a little background about how we got here. I think a lot of folks will probably know how I ended up standing here today and what the process looked like, but there's a lot of text on the screen. I'll just summarize what's up here. The background of how we got here. Last year, the Metropolitan District posted a request for information asking about, what kind of technology and processes are appropriate to use for conducting an employee climate survey. Amazing Workplace saw that posted online and followed up on that. We submitted a proposal or submitted some information about that in response to the request for information, and appeared before the committee a couple of times following that. So then on July 5th, we provided an actual proposal to perform a survey and a one-year agreement for Amazing Workplace services. So one of the things that's kind of unique, and you'll see that kind of indicated throughout as I'm talking about the results and our follow-up, is we don't just do a survey and provide a report at Amazing Workplace. We have a continuing relationship with the organization, both supporting the technology platform we have and providing you that third-party advice and the insights and the analysis that we can to try and help you leverage this as an organization. But just following through the process, in August of 2024, the PP&I committee met and approved our proposal. And then eventually in September, the full MDC board approved the proposal. At least I think I have the timeline right here. I had to go back through the paperwork. In October, myself and Laura Senna visited MDC in person for town hall survey introductions. So we wanted to really take the time to introduce employees to this survey process. That was especially important because I know we haven't done a survey process like this at MDC, at least for a long time, and probably nothing really similar to this. So we took the time to meet with folks. We did a presentation, a lot of Q&As at that time. so that the employees would have a sense of what it is we do and kind of what our goals are. October 29th, we opened the survey, pardon me, and then November 20th, the survey closed. So that was the period that the survey was open. We'll talk about the results from that survey in just a minute. On the right here was the request for information. Some people might have wondered what that was. That's an image from the RFI. Okay, so a little bit about our process at Amazing Workplace. We do an anonymous confidential survey. So and I'll be referring to this again later, but when we collect survey responses from folks, we don't store them with their identities. So we distributed links by email, by text messages, by QR code, any way we could out to people to get all the employees from the organization to participate. Our surveys are typically open for 2 to 3 weeks. This one was open for about 3 weeks. Like I said, results are recorded separately from identities. And instead of the identities, we tie results to groups. So in the case of MDC, the results, as we recorded responses from people, were tied to, okay, these are people from certain departments. And actually, we used a modified version of the departments, kind of broaden them out. So we made sure we had lots of people in there to preserve anonymity. We also tied them to whether they were a member of one of the local unions or not unionized position. Survey results from our products are never stored in a raw form. They're kind of only available in the platform, and things you're going to see in this presentation are just drawn from the platform. So there's no way to just sort of rip out all the responses. They're only stored as you see them in the platform. What is the information? What does it look like when we're gathering information? This is what the survey looked like. Basically screens where people would answer questions about how they feel about a particular topic. There'd be a box sometimes below, or actually all the time below any question, where people could put in some text information. We treat that text information that they provide back a little bit more sensitively, and what I'm providing to you in this report is more focused on the feeling results and the yes/no answers, with only sort of a summary of the topics that were brought up in the individual text feedback. And then, so you see the feeling questions, the yes/no answers, and the text answers. Those are the big three. So I'd like to get on to the results now, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
All right. So again, we focus on happiness here, and we have a scale measuring from very happy and happy down to satisfied, unsatisfied, unhappy, and very unhappy. On the left side, you can see our gold star is getting people in the category of very happy and happy. We have 44% of the employees who responded to the survey. And as you can see down here, it's 67% of all employees invited actually participated, so almost exactly 2/3. We had 44% reporting that overall, their feeling about work was happy or very happy. If you slide down, you can see the indication that 27% of employees just kind of fell in the satisfied category, not really reaching happy. They reported that they were, well, sort of satisfied overall about work. Going down, you can see about 18% of employees in the unsatisfied category overall about work, and then unhappy at 9% and very unhappy at 1%. This is how people responded when they were asked, summing things up, at the end of the survey, how do you feel about working at MDC? So this is your overall view. Now we have topical answers and things I'm going to dive into, but at Amazing Workplace, we see this as an okay score, and it's sort of close to the average, but it indicates a lot of room for improvement in certain areas that I'll identify. I will say your participation was quite good. It can be hard to get organizations to participate in this type of process, especially if it's an unfamiliar one. So I appreciate everyone's participation. Going on now, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the happiness results we saw from different departments, as well as the union groupings, and then we'll go on to the topics themselves and some of the areas that we can address. This here is a view of all of the departments at MDC, the way we organize them, there's a chart on the right-hand side that shows how sometimes we had to roll up some groups into a larger group. So on the left side, you see on the higher end of the scale, the highest happiness with, oh, and just a note here, the gray column in the middle is participation. So don't take that as your happiness score. This is how many people participated in the survey out of the group that was, or out of everybody that was surveyed. So over on the left, you can see the top is the Office of the Chief Operating Officer, very high at 72%, well above the average of 44% for the organization. Then you had central equipment maintenance, the Chief Executive Officer, and water treatment and supply. Those were all kind of above the organization's own internal average. So those are the sort of happier groups. In the middle, close to the average of the organization, you see maintenance, water pollution control, and engineering. And then below the average, down toward the bottom, you get lower happiness showing in command center and utility services, operations, finance, and chief administrative officer. So this slide here shows that. The next slide is going to be the union breakout. So local 1026 up at the top at 48%, non-union at 47%, and local 0184 at 44%, all pretty close to the average of the organization. And local local 3713, a little bit lower than the average. They're at 36% in the very happy. Now I'm going to move on to some particular topic areas of the things that when employees were responding to the survey, they wanted to draw attention to, they wanted to call out. So what we've got here is how employees feel about what we call enjoyment, the things they like, the things that they don't have such a like feeling toward. All in all, 70% happy, very happy. And just a preview, the first few slides are going to be things that are going pretty well and mostly have things that we want to maintain on them. And after I do a few of those slides, we'll focus on some of the areas that need more attention and have more depth to them as far as things we want to address. So 70% of employees in this topic, enjoyment, were happy or very happy, 30% below that category. As you can see, the yes/no answers below each one of these topics indicate particular things that employees could respond yes or no to, and that helps us identify areas that need to be addressed within that topic. So in this group, there's a lot of good stuff here, but there was a little bit of hesitancy around, do you like working for your leader or manager, or does your manager help make work more fun? Which is, lots of people would say, well, work doesn't have to be fun. Of course not, but it's important information about how people can enjoy work. I'm going to go on to the next one now. Lost my control here. There we go. Going on to belonging. This topic has to do with how welcome and accepted people feel by a group. So how welcome and accepted people are feeling in their teams and in their workplace overall. This one was at 65% happy, with 35% people not in that category. Call outs here. There's a little bit of feeling that people don't always feel like they're treated fairly and with respect. And as you can see, across the board here, there's a sense that there's improvement about how people feel cared about as a person and whether they can sort of be themselves at work. These are all things that I'm going to talk a little bit about when I talk about recommended actions for the organization. There's going to be a couple of notes about addressing this topic. Going on to meaning, this is an area we measure where we're looking at how people feel about the overall purpose of what they're doing at work, what their organization does, and how tied they feel to that, and whether they feel like they admire that purpose and they're motivated by it. This is a pretty purpose-driven organization. Typical public organizations tend to be fairly meaning and purpose-driven. And on this one, 63% reported very happy or happy with their sense of meaning in the organization. 37% not within the happy category. Couple call outs here. Some people didn't feel like their leader or manager made them feel important and valuable with regard to the meaning and purpose of work. Also, not a very high proportion reported feeling like they and customers were always treated well by the workplace, and so that's something we can always address. So now we're going to get into the topic of areas that really need attention, a lot of room for improvement here. The first and really the top line and really a highlight I want to bring out to the members of the commission and everyone here is communication. A great first step of communication is having us come in and handle this information for you and bring it out in the open and into the light. But communication is critically important, and it's a fairly low score within this organization. Only 19% of employees reporting that they're happy or very happy, 81% somewhere out of there. Big factors here, feeling that leadership overall does a good job of keeping people informed of what's going on, which can always be a challenge in organizations with a complex leadership structure and decision-making. And another big one, feeling like your own leader or manager listens to and understands employee feedback. So again, a good first step with what we're doing here with the Amazing Workplace process and the survey process, and plenty to do. Moving on to the topic of balance. This is, just to give it a little bit of a definition, this is people feeling like they have enough time to get their work done, that they are supported in accomplishing the things they need to do in their personal lives, and they've got some help in keeping stress in sort of a manageable level. Only 19% of employees reporting happy on this one, 81% not yet happy. Pardon me. With a pretty big emphasis here on not having enough time to get work done, and then some emphasis on not feeling like that employees are getting checked in with about managing those time constraints or that work-life balance. Going to rewards. Rewards is kind of overall pay, benefits, feeling recognized, those sorts of things. Rewards is the last topic that I'm calling out specifically on a slide as needing attention. People feeling recognized. There's definitely a good number of people who aren't feeling recognized and appreciated for what they do at work. There's also some folks who feel like there could be more transparency or clear communication or goals around pay, and a sense of fairness being developed around pay, which is always something we see. And then feeling like benefits are fair for your job location. Workplace size is kind of a runner-up, so benefits generally quite appreciated. Those are the slides on those topics that I wanted to call out for you. The next couple of slides talk briefly about the analysis of the written feedback we received. I just kind of pulled those out into a word cloud in order to be able to bring up a few of the topics that people brought forth, but there's so many comments that, and the comments are, on a multitude of things. I can't just provide a list in this setting, but I'll just hit some of the highlights in the next couple of slides. So on the question of what makes MDC amazing, people brought up their people, teams, and coworkers, their service to the community, culture, work environment, work-life balance, meaningful work. Their pay and benefits was really great. A really big thing they wanted to call out, and the positive atmosphere. And turning to the things that could be improved, some really important notes here: better relationships with leadership, more effective communication, opportunities for work schedule flexibility, greater recognition for good work, staff empowerment, more autonomy, stronger staffing and workforce development, transparency around fair pay, improved sense of fair treatment at work, better work-life balance, and a clear communication from top leadership. That's kind of a summary of the things that were reported on the survey that could be better, but there were a lot of comments there. So now I'm ready to get on to the recommended actions. Mr. Chair, if you don't have anything to stop me on right now. All right. Hearing none. So here are some of the actions after kind of analyzing what we saw here that we would be looking at. On the front of communication, we recommend setting up regular, timely communication from leadership, making sure it's understandable. That's communication from the top down and making sure it's getting down to everyone so they know what's happening. Promoting clear, effective, and respectful communication is really important. Sometimes we can get stuck in a rut of formalized communication that's not always clear or not always effective or not always respectful. And those are things that we want to promote within the organization. Providing training and support for increased collaboration and team participation, drawing on team insights and experience on the communication front. Going on to meaning, just focusing on recognizing and celebrating the impact of each role and job in achieving MDC's goals. So just making sure we're calling out people throughout the organization for what they do to contribute to the overall mission. That's the kind of action that we recommend for meaning here. Empowerment, we recommend supporting improvements in communication, transparency, and trust within teams so that people have what they need to get work done and they're feeling empowered. On growth, we recommend supporting employees by developing a clear vision of career development across jobs and roles so that people know what they need to achieve to grow in their careers at the organization. And balance, recommending studying workloads and figuring out where resource help might be needed. There may be kind of a triage process there and figuring out what can be the most important places to make improvements, as well as supporting improved planning for projects and scheduling. On rewards, building on the culture of appreciation and recognition, making sure we're fostering an environment where people are appreciating each other, recognizing great work, leaders are recognizing great work, and we're maintaining robust information on compensation. So all leaders who are involved in the process of determining compensation have accurate information about what's fair in the market and for your type of workplace. On safety, which is a subject that means not just physical safety, but psychological safety, feeling like you're not exposed to retaliation or anything like that. We recommend strengthening a culture of emotional and mental safety where care, respect, professionalism, and fair treatment are held in high regard. So elevating how important we think those factors are. And also ensuring physical safety and hazard reporting are prioritized and that reports are always followed up and concluded. Finally, on the topic of belonging, ensuring employee onboarding fosters welcoming and connection. Sometimes the onboarding process of bringing employees doesn't focus enough on making sure people are brought into the team and they're cohesive part of the team. And then elevating the importance of strong teams. So it's another cultural thing to be focused on, emphasizing how our team identity, our organizational identity makes us more effective in our jobs. And now, Mr. Chair, I'm ready to take questions, myself and my team.
Open for question.
My big question, why isn't satisfied considered happy?
Thank you.
Because that would skew the number significantly to the left, because it's a big number.
Mr. Chair, did I hear why does it say satisfied instead of happy?
Satisfied.
That was a little bit hard to hear that
The
one.
question was, you have 27% in the satisfied column, and you're grouping them with the less than happy or unhappy, or whatever those other two were.
Yeah, and let's go back to the overall results. So again, happiness is what we aim for, right? It's our top categories in happy and very happy. We want employees to reach that point. One of the reasons that we run our results the way we do is to encourage organizations not to think in terms of mere satisfaction. However, it is really important to recognize that we're keeping things at satisfaction. We're meeting people's basic expectations about how their work should be. And so we want to encourage continuous improvement towards happy overall. But it's absolutely true that overall, we've got 71% satisfied or above.
Any other questions?
Yes, this is Commissioner Ricardo. On your last or second to last slide, you had 14 items in the recommended list. You're never going to do 14 things, all right?
That's right.
Pick 3 for us. What are the real top hitters? It's 14 is too many, in my opinion.
Absolutely. 2 things about this. And Mr. Chair, I guess I should be responding to you. The communication is the most important thing in this organization that needs to be addressed. Clear and timely communication and emphasizing, respect and ensuring the communication is effective and clear is got to be the most important takeaway that I can take from this. But pausing for a minute on what I think is most important after now putting out communication, these recommended actions are intended to be deployed throughout the organization and available as recommendations for maybe a particular department that has an area that needs attention that other departments don't have that area that needs attention. So as a possible improvement, because not every part of the organization will have the same needs. So this is a toolkit for you, so to speak. But now returning to if I'm doing something throughout the organization, what am I making sure we do? I'm focusing on that clear, respectful communication, information flowing down from the top freely. I'm focusing on that culture of emotional, mental safety, where respect, professionalism, and fair treatment are held in high regard. That's something cultural that you want to be developing so that when people receive communication, they trust it and they feel safe to give feedback. And then, finally, I would say, in a third one, probably focusing on balance and making sure that resources are allocated so that teams always feel supported.
Other questions? Mr. Taylor?
Yes. I'm the infamous Al Taylor, chairman of PP&I. And I do have some concerns. I guess this climate study came basically out of the Board of Commissioners, and particularly some of us who were in PP&I. We essentially wanted to hear from the employees. And I guess my concern here basically, and I'm willing to take it up or down, because the key factor here for me is, what do our employees think? What do they have to say? And we were looking basically for them to tell us. We didn't want to get into the mix in terms of interfering. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I was accused basically of putting the climate study in place and then going out and soliciting negative comments from the employees, which was not the case. I don't speak to the employees around here from the standpoint of that I'm fearful that if I do speak to them, there are going to be negative consequences for those employees. I'm concerned basically that PP&I, which basically drove this study, has never seen the survey instrument.
This is like a board meeting going over the work study. And so they're going.
I mean,
Couldn't understand what you said.
I mean, the commissioners have basically never seen the survey instrument. We asked to see that. And we asked basically to have someone discuss with us basically the results of the survey. We've not seen any of that. Yet and still other people here, we think, have seen the survey it has been discussed.
Al, I'm going to interrupt you now.
No.
No one has seen anything until tonight. No one.
Wait a minute, no, that's not true. Hasn't HR seen it?
They've seen it to, not seen this, but they've seen it to process through the
Well,
portal.
then they've seen the survey. We're talking about the survey instrument. I'm not talking.
But it has not been shared except for the 3 people in HR.
Well, then I think we've got, the only thing that we're concerned about here is that the employees have an opportunity to freely express their views, and that those views are correctly or are looked at and interpreted so that essentially their views are basically before this body, so that we can act upon them, discuss them with management, and see what direction we're going to take. That is the only purpose here. And that is my only concern here. Now, if our employees are telling us after we get through all of this, that they think as a body, their views have been correctly interpreted and their views have been correctly expressed, then fine. I'm willing to take it whatever way it falls. But I want to make sure basically that our people get a chance to say what they want to say without any fear of retaliation, nothing more, nothing less. And then we can get on with this business of water and sewer, which is really our business. That's all, nothing more, nothing less. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you asked as the presentation or before the presentation was made that we write down some questions so that we didn't interrupt. And that's always somewhat of a problem, but nevertheless, I'm going to try to go through several questions that I had, if I may. The first question I have, and I'm sorry, I did not hear the presenter's name.
My name is Eli Justman.
Eli.
That's right.
So Eli, if I can address you as Eli,
Of course.
what was the participation rate of the employee universe?
Yes, that's a great question. And just for everybody to see, it's 67% of all employees, and we invited all employees all the way up the chain. 67% of employees participated, basically 2/3.
So 2/3. Oh, okay, thank you for that. The next question is, are we, the board, going to have an opportunity at some point going forward of looking, reviewing, seeing this document?
Well,
questionnaire, whatever you call it.
This document is a part of the record of this meeting, and so should be available to all of you. Absolutely.
It's in the,
This is the document.
it's in,
No, it's not in the county book, but it can be.
you send it out to everybody.
It'll be going out in open book.
Open text.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other questions I had, and I don't want to get stuck in parsing the choice of words and so forth, but I understand how these concepts are discussed and how they have to be identified. But I was struck by the fact that the presenter, Eli, used the word several times, fun. And as that presentation was being made, I was imagining the multiple jobs that I may have had in my life. And I'm thinking back, how many of those jobs did I have, successful or not, that were fun? I'm not sure that fun is the right word. I would have expected more of a word that would be rewarding? Do you find your job rewarding? Do you find yourself satisfied at the end of the day that you have done X, Y, Z? Because that's a feeling that's very strong as well. Also, do I, as an employee, I'm not trying to determine what your question should have been, but this is a question that I would have asked, I think. And that is, when, when you finish your employment obligations, are you satisfied that you have contributed to the success of the organization? I'm not sure that somebody who may have fun is actually, contributing to the success. Perhaps you could, have your own interpretation of that. Nevertheless, I just wanted to relate some of the things that came to my mind. The other side of that, not the end of the day, did you feel that you contributed? At the beginning of the day, when you start your day as an employee, regardless of the position that you hold at MDC, do you look forward to that job, or do you look negatively on Tuesday for that job? We've all been there. We've all had those feelings. And I think somehow that would be a deeper sense of how the employees respond. Finally, if I can, Mr. Chairman, there might have been a question that directed the situation of employment regarding pay, perks. I can't read my own writing here. Hang on, sir. I'm sorry. But to measure the compensation of the position, is it a situation that you would say is generous, is fair, is poor? I think if you took some of those answers, you would have a good idea of what's going on. So those in general are questions that I had as that presentation was going forward. The whole notion of employees and their attitudes and their performance and so forth, and it's all wrapped up in one package. We have had, over the course of the time I've been on this board, multiple opportunities when employees, regardless of what positions they may be in, have made presentations or otherwise have explained their job, what they're up against, and just some anecdotes about their experience. And I have to tell you, there were many times when employees gave a presentation that was absolutely amazing to me. I'm not somebody who has had a lot of jobs of physical contact, pipe laying or, sewer treatment or whatever it might be. So I don't really know that experience. But I have to tell you, I was knocked over by some of our employees who presented their attitude. And it was remarkable that they all had a great attitude. And I'm not saying it's going to be something that exists top to bottom every department, but I think sometimes these questions drive a certain response that may not give us the measure that we're looking for or that we hope to get. So, I mean, all this obviously is in function of building better staff, improving staff, and making the organization better. But let's not forget, the organization has to be better if it's going to be successful. So if we measure it by John Smith, who happens to be a pipe layer, well, he may have had a bad day. But nevertheless, those are the questions that came to my mind. I'm sure there are others who have similar questions, but I'll leave that with you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time. Sorry that it took a little bit while.
Commissioner Salemi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for both you and for Eli. I want to make sure I understand where we're at right now, because I thought he said that Eli said he was going to stop at like multiple points along the way to ask questions. Or is this over? Is the presentation over, or is there more we were going to move on to? That's
my presentation is done, and I'm happy to answer questions.
okay. I thought there were going to be a couple places where it's stopped. That's just my fault. So I'm one of the folks that originally asked for this climate survey and asked if we could see some various types of surveys so we would understand, what we were getting into. We did want to hear from all the employees, collective bargaining and BE&I and management level. So I thought that if we had a chance to look at the questions originally, that we might be able to participate in helping shape some of them for this particular agency, which I think is unique to a certain extent, not only here in Connecticut, but just generally sort of unique as a public agency. And then we didn't do that. But then we're trying to understand the presentation that you just made, Eli. I thought that it would be good if we at least had the questions so we could see, how it develops, how the answers. So we have sort of an analysis of the answers right now, and this is going to be available to us to download at some point soon. And I assume that we're going to be able to see all the questions that were asked and then how they were answered, the percentages, the way that you're showing them here. But
yes, sir. In this presentation, I just wanted to draw your attention to when you get this presentation, and I'm sorry to interrupt, and I wanted to let you know, you'll see in the topics, you'll see particular questions at the bottom. These are some of the prompts that the people went through in the text at the bottom. Those are some places you can find that information, but please go on.
Oh, yeah, but that was my point, and that was my point last month when I asked about it, is that this was sent out to some 400 employees, and they all saw it, but we haven't seen it yet. And I'm not trying to be funny about this, but we put it together, and we agreed to pay for it, and we still haven't seen the questions. So I thought that I would ask, and I was told then 4 weeks ago that we would get the questions, and now we have the report, and we still don't have the questions, so it can't really match up the answers and questions. So I guess my question is, are we going to get the questions so we can put them together with this report? Are we going to see how the questions were presented to the employees and sort of use our own, we work with this to try to match up the answers to the questions? Are we going to get the questions? We said that we were going to get them. I asked that at the PTI meeting and in the beginning of January. So are we getting the questions?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is.
Hang on. I think Commissioner Patel.
I wanted to know if I should respond yet. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Can I get an answer to my question? Are we going to get the question?
Absolutely. I'm ready to respond. I'm ready to respond. There was a little chaos on the line there, and I wasn't sure what was happening.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. Absolutely. So, at our organization, we're in the interesting position of having worked with, PP&I and the board to kind of authorize our process, and then worked with leadership and the administration sort of within to get the process rolling. So we will provide, if we can just get an indication that that information is requested and it's appropriate to provide it to the board, I'll provide anything that's requested, basically through the executive and maybe with some sort of confirmation from the chair or council that I should provide it.
Mr. Fleming, were you done?
You asking me if I'm done? Yeah. I think Eli, I didn't, if you weren't asked to send us the questions, I appreciate your answer, but I thought we'd have them by now. We can match them up, but we're going to have them, so we'll be able to do that. Thank you.
I think Commissioner Patel had his hand up first. Commissioner
Yes,
Patel?
sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what study has done is basically what should be have done. I think all of us have to do little more work on it and then develop our own method of finding out how we can improve everything. And a number of areas which we will need a lot of discussions. Everybody should participate honestly without accusing each other and make our organization look better and improve it so that employees are satisfied, everybody is good. And I won't say that, but there are some feelings which I concur that we need to do our own work a little more than our consultant. Consultant gave us the baseline. We start from there and let's work on it. And I hope we can do better. Thank you.
Commissioner Torres?
I'd like to summarize some of this. I think we're a little bit extended. Very basically, some of the concerns that Commissioner Salami has, I have, but I just want to be succinct in saying, can we get one, a hard copy of this presentation, two, a hard copy of the survey so that we can put the questions in context, three, after being reviewed by management, because action is what we need now that we have the survey and these concerns. How does management look at the survey, digest it perhaps in consultation with the consultants and say, different areas seem potentially to have different concerns. How do we address those concerns? Is there then a plan by management to address these issues that can be presented to the commissioners so that we can see, what the outcome of all of this exercise is? Otherwise, it will be an exercise with no results. I'd like to know, what are we going to do next? How do we make our employees happier or more satisfied? What does it take to make this a more cohesive, positive environment, for all our employees? That's what I would do. So, if we can get, something, and hard copies of these kinds of things, and then for the administration to then come back with some recommendations of what it intends to do to try and address some of these concerns that our employees have.
The answer to your question on hard copies is yes and yes. Question in regards to management moving forward, I would be extremely surprised if there was ever a survey done that didn't identify weaknesses. But until now, we don't know what they are. Amazing Workplaces, it's not their job to provide us with how to make those fixes. So that's up to management. Management may come back to us and say, we'd like to go outside and bring in someone who can help us depending on the severity of what those weaknesses are. But yes, they
I'm not suggesting, Mr. Chairman, that the consultants provide us with what those solutions are, but those obviously have to come from the administration because, they know the organization and they're dealing directly with the employees.
And then to the board if approval is needed, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes, I want to know if when.
can you put your microphone on?
It's on.
Aaron.
I want to know if when employees were asked to fill out the questionnaires, were they identifiable by race and gender?
Eli?
The response is no.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Then how?
Commissioner Buell?
Yeah, Eli, how many questions were in the survey?
About 50.
Okay, and I'm just going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that you have more than one survey depending on the organization you're working with.
That is correct.
Was there any particular involvement in management here with which survey was presented to the employees?
So the survey we selected is sort of what you might consider our flagship or main survey that we have the most resources around. And it was selected because it's been used in similar organizations successfully in the past. Also, many of the other surveys tend to be narrower. They might relate to a particular topic, so that organizations can focus on an area that they already have a concern about. This one was chosen because it is broad, and this organization had not done anything similar before.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bush?
Hi, Commissioner Bush, Mr. Chairman, through you. Eli, so listening to your presentation, in my opinion, it was a very high level overview. And you, at the end, at the summary, you offered what I would consider very generic recommendations, good ones, but they were generic. I guess my questions are we going to get any additional details that were not shown to us today? And were there any more specific complaints or areas of failure that were highlighted individually by the respondents? Were there any written answers that elaborated on any of the questions to provide specific personal feedback, or were these just multiple choice questions to gauge a level of happiness?
That's a great question. So when I showed you the preview of what it looks like to take the survey, and you see these text boxes below where I have some demonstration answers in there, you can see that folks can type out anything they want. We received over 3,000 of those comments. And so first of all, it's not very workable to present those comments in this setting or in a report that is digestible by you right now. And the other factor is that many of those pieces of individual text feedback they're kind of sensitive. The best way to use them is to shepherd them through the organization and direct the attention of management and people who are leading these folks to get them resolved. So that's why we just handle them a little differently. We don't go and sort of show everybody's text feedback to the general public. You know, here we are in a setting where anybody can watch this. This is all public record, and so it's not really a suitable format for distributing those comments.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson. Obviously, you've shown some areas that need improvement, and I assume we'll have an implementation plan to address those. But as a follow-up to that, I'm familiar with the Net Promoter Score and how it's used in businesses to judge customer satisfaction. Can that be utilized as a follow-up tool to judge happiness within the workplace?
So thank you for that question. The NPS or Net Promoter Score is a tool that we occasionally use as an organization. In fact, our organization is licensed to use that question. Believe it or not, that is a trademarked question that belongs to Bain and Company, but we are licensed to deploy that. The version for employees is called the ENPS, or Employee Net Promoter Score. And the question it asks is basically, would you recommend the place you work to friends and family or people you're connected with to work there? The answer I would give is, I don't know that it's necessarily the most effective follow-up. The most effective follow-up would be to see if in the areas where we saw a need for improvement, we've been able to get reported responses to come up. So it would be another iteration of this survey.
And I'll take your food out.
But the Employee Net Promoter Score is very useful, especially if you're trying to focus on recruiting, getting out there, getting more employees, kind of monitoring the reputation of the organization is what it's most effective for.
Thank you. Commissioner Adel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that same vein of that question, I would say at some point we probably would like to have PP&I review and perhaps come back to Amazing Workplace to do some additional work to kind of help guide us down the right path to address some of these concerns that have been raised. So I would certainly, I'm not on that committee, but I would certainly support the committee taking that charge. As far as the happiness gauge goes, and I see the front of me, the very happy was 44%, not very happy was 56%. Eli, you said that was a fairly typical score in this area, in like a municipality like us?
Yeah, so just sort of looking at the average, it's very close to what we'd see around the average, which basically, like we indicate here, there's room for improvement. We could see, we have organizations that are able to reach into 70, 80% very happy, and it's all about a focus on employee experience.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the categories of the folks who were either very happy or not happy or satisfied or unsatisfied, could you go over that slide once more for me? Because I just wanted to be, kind of get a better feel for where that was.
Sure. And many folks here are probably going to be more familiar with what these classifications mean than I am. But here's the overall happiness by the larger department groups we made. Now, and just a reminder, the only groups we tracked were these larger departments and then basically that union classification. We kept it at a very high level to also make employees feel comfortable about anonymity, which is so important to them. Up at the top right here, we had the Office of the Chief Operating Officer. So that's EH&S, Labs, Patrol, Direct Reports of the COO. That was at 72%, so the highest. Below that, 65% were in the very happy category at CEM, which is Central Equipment Maintenance. I don't know a lot about that, but they had substantially above your average score for the organization. The group under CEO was at 63%. That was communications, legal, human resources, and direct reports of the CEO. Going from there, WT and S, water treatment and supply, also above average, 19% above the average within the organization, with 63% happy or very happy. Maintenance, still above the average for the organization at 56%, getting down closer to that number we started out talking about here. Water pollution control, 52%, only slightly above the overall happiness around the organization. Engineering closest to the average at 48% happy, very happy, only 4% above the average for the organization. Then we had CC and US, that is Command Center and Utility Services. They're the first one below, 13% below, only 31% reporting happy or very happy. Below that, operations, 29% in operations. That's 15% below your average. So only 29% of folks reporting happy or very happy. Finance, 25% of folks reporting happy or very happy. And all the way at the bottom, we had the groups within Chief Administrative Officer, Procurement, Customer Service, Information Technology, GIS, Payroll, and Direct Reports of the CAO at 12% happy or very happy.
Thanks for that. Appreciate that, Eli.
Welcome.
Yes, one thing that I think that we should really be concerned about is that this survey, a lot of the questions were what I would characterize as garden variety or general. But as I understand it, there were open-ended responses where essentially people were asked to respond, I think, specific to the organization. And I guess what I'm concerned about is I just want to make sure that we get an accurate reading of what those expressions were, regardless of what they were. They could be positive, they could be negative. I don't know what they are. But essentially, I think it's important that we get a fair and accurate reading. Our employees stepped out on the line and took the survey, and they expressed their views. And I think that we owe it to them to hear what those views are. You know, be they up or down. I don't know what they are. And I guess what I'm concerned about is I just want to make sure that we get an accurate reading of what those open-ended responses are. I don't want them filtered. I want us to be able to sit down and look at them and hear what our people have said. We owe it to them. You know, nothing more, nothing less. And as I've said before, I'll take the results of the study, whatever it is, up or down, because that's basically what our people are telling us. That's all I'm looking for, and I think that that's very, very important. Thank you.
Eli.
Yes, sir.
Follow up on Al's comments. You know, we've seen what you've presented. Has those, I'll call them essay questions, have those been factored into this?
So they have been factored into this as far as the areas that the topics that we drew your attention to and the areas for improvement. And in those word clouds where I was just calling out some of the high level topics. Again, this was meant to be a high level presentation just to get you started and suitable for, you know, a public meeting and for me to present in a public meeting. But though, you know, there's again, 3,000 plus comments that exist in there. So it's not a good way for me to walk through them with you or to pick and choose somebody's comments over another either. But in general, they're kind of a little bit more particular, a little bit more sensitive. They can also tend to identify people because they're writing about their personal experiences. And, you know, to the extent that they say something about, say, their manager, their particular department, they can sort of identify people. And so they should be handled with care through the organization to address things within people's own working areas.
Any other question? Question, Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the second time, I just want to ask Eli another question, and that is, I appreciate the first answer you gave me, which was a measure of 67% participation. Well, what would be the typical percentage of response in your work doing these surveys?
Thank you for that question. What's interesting is the typical percentage of response is actually quite low. It's down around 35%. Something that we pride ourselves on as an organization is we employ a lot of tools to make people comfortable and excited to participate. And we managed to get 67%, which is quite good, especially for an organization that isn't, familiar with this kind of process. Also, especially for an organization with many, many workers in the field, working on sites and things like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Desai.
Hang on just a second. Commissioner Torini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Has there ever been a survey done before like this?
There was one done 10 years, 12, long time.
Has there been a comparison number?
18 years, it was a while.
Okay, so there's no number, percentage of how many people actually got involved versus what they are doing today.
Yeah.
And my other question was, is there a way to run like an algorithm on the keywords from the essay answers, I guess, as you call them, for keywords on what the rebuttals were to their questions?
Eli?
Yes, and in fact, that's some of the kind of analysis we did for me to prepare the word clouds that you'll see in the as part of this presentation. But we can essentially comb through them and show the most frequently occurring words.
And then my last question is was it offered in any other languages besides English, Spanish? Was it changed?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Eli.
It was offered in English, Spanish, and there's some other default languages that are in there, but I'd have to get that answer back to you. Would you like me to send that answer back through?
Possible.
Yeah, I'll pass that answer along just because I don't have the list of languages in front of me. But there is a toggle there and an opportunity to change languages if you need to.
Thank you.
Commissioner Taylor?
Well, first of all, the 2/3 participation is significant. Basically, when they poll the United States and surveys, basically the random sample is not much larger than, I think, 2,500 people. It's not more than 3,000 people. So that from a statistical point of view, in terms of an analysis, 2/3 is really, you're in the ballpark. I mean, you really are getting a good measure of your population. So I think kudos to basically the bargaining units and to our employees for basically stepping up on this. They're to be commended.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes. Mr. Patel?
No.
Desai, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, a couple of questions. So is this your typical presentation that you provide after your analysis? Is this something, or it is tailored for this organization?
The answer to that is this is typical for a presentation that we're doing that's sort of open to the public. When we present to, say, managers or people, team leaders, people within the organization, or when we present to executives, we're going to be a little bit more, down in the weeds and detailed on what it is we suggest they do. We're going to be breaking things down more in terms of which department combined with which topic are we seeing something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Second question is, so as you heard, one of the commissioners was talking about like your contribution, your compensation, that kind of thing. Like, do you think, is it low, high, whatever? Now, do you think that the questions that you have asked and your summarization of those questions in happiness, that covers those kinds of indirect questions?
That's a great question. So in fact, because there was so much information here, I think that a lot of folks didn't catch some of the things that were in the presentation. One of the slides I covered as an action area, or an area, a topic we really want to focus on is the one we call rewards as a general topic. And one of the questions in rewards is, as you see here, number 3, do you feel like the pay you are given is fair for your job, location, and workplace size? So we make people think about, on the whole, what their job is like compared to other jobs. We don't want them to just think about, is your pay fair? We want them to think about, is your pay fair for the type of work you do, what kind of organization you work for? And as you see here, 30% of employees did say no in answer to that question. And that's why it's one of the action areas, is we want to increase the quality of communication we have around that topic, and to draw the attention of the organization to that perception there might, from 30% of the employees that they can't agree with that, or they didn't say yes to that one.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Lewis?
Oh, I can just barely hear you.
You. So just say I was taking a look at this survey, and I wanted to see how many of the unhappy people were Black women. Would there be a way to extract that information from this survey? I know you said they weren't identifiable by gender or race.
No, ma'am. So the only, that's exactly right, not identifiable by gender or race in this survey. The only, I'm sorry?
Eli, you're going to have to repeat.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, ma'am, we could not get that information. The only way that we can get information about, who said what is related to those very simple groups that I outlined, what department folks work in, and that's in that big roll-up of departments, which is on the screen here, or which local union they belong to, or whether they're non-union. Those are the only things that we attached to the responses as they rolled in. So there was no, what you might consider sort of demographic type data outside of those very simple organizational groups. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, just the last comment. I think we got to keep this in perspective. It's 25 grand. You're only going to get so much for 25 grand. I think what they did for 25 grand was pretty good. It probably cost them 5 grand to come to the first meeting. And 70% of the people satisfied, 30% somewhat unsatisfied, with pretty much nobody really unsatisfied. Everybody liked the pay and benefits. And based on the information you have, you got some communication issues with some of the departments. I mean, what it is, I thought it was a pretty good job. I don't know. I think overall, I'm pretty happy with the way things look, but you got a few spots to look at. But again, it's 25 grand. This is just, I think 70% of people are satisfied. I think we're.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I just throw in my comments. And first, I agree with Commissioner Taylor that 67% was absolutely astounding. It's off the chart. But as was mentioned by one of the other commissioners, I'm not sure who, that you got this word satisfied, and if you group satisfied, satisfied is not unhappy or less than happy. And if you group it with the happy, you're at 71%. So you've got 67% participants, and of those, 71% are saying they're satisfied or happy. Satisfied is like a grade of C, and we shouldn't strive for a grade of C. But on the other hand, they're not unhappy. So there's a lot that's been identified that shows areas that we can improve upon to have better working relationships with our employees. And I think the next steps, and keep in mind that from the time PPI approved the release of an RFI to the time the survey was completed was pretty quick. So, I thank everybody here for their patience, but this is just the first step. And now let's see what management can come back to us with recommendations for approval. And one of the other commissioners mentioned, well, 13 or whatever, is 15 is too many. But if you group those, I think 5 or 6 of them had the word communication in. And if you could group those all together in those type of groups, there might not be 13 or 15 areas. There might only be 5 areas. But let's see what becomes of this, and let management take a look at it and come back to us with some recommendations. So with that, we'll move on to, and Eli, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Okay. Move on now to number 11, Water Bureau. Commissioner Adel, are you on? Commissioner Adel? Commissioner Adel, are you with us?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I
All right.
unmuted and then it
Next
muted.
on the agenda is consideration, potential action, developers permit agreement, reimbursement agreement, Stallion Ridge Glastonbury. I recognize Commissioner Adel for a motion.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Class 1, Stallion Ridge Glastonbury Class 1 water main extension and request for reimbursement agreement. It was voted on in Water Bureau and unanimously approved.
There a second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next, Board of Finance, consideration, potential action, approval for State of Connecticut financing on the CWF 4001-C. Chair recognizes Commissioner Salemi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the January 27th meeting of the Board of Finance, this item was approved unanimously.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Next, number 13, Committee on Organization, consideration and potential action, appointment of commissioners, citizen member to committees. Chair recognizes Commissioner Buell.
The Committee on Organization met this afternoon, voted unanimously to add as a citizen member Edwin Vargas, a new commissioner Chris Torini, and reappointments to committees of Diane Lewis. It was passed unanimously, and I move the approval of this resolution.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, approval to receive, report, and adopt resolution. All those in, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Next, number 14, opportunity for general public comments. What's the back? I just muted. Okay.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. In the amount of time I've been here, I don't think I have ever seen 100% presence of all commissioners at a board meeting. That's amazing. And speaking of amazing, I think Amazing Workplace has done an amazing job. I understand this was kind of a high-level overview, but it was quick, so it was hard to follow some things. And somewhat frustrated by some of the commissioners' comments and questions that for me had been discussed and explained at prior meetings and even in this meeting right here. And I think that the public should be involved in any deeper dive into this. I think it's very important that the public understand the workings of the MDC and how its employees are feeling about working here. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Hearing and seeing none? No. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Board. My name is James Sanchez, State Representative of Hartford 6th District, and I'm here just to clarify if there's if there's still any confusion of a proposed bill that I submitted. And also, it was co-sponsored by Representative Farrar from West Hartford, Representative Delnicki, and also Senator Lesser. This proposed bill number is 5840, and I will read the act. An act concerning the Metropolitan District Commission and payment in lieu of taxes. Be enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in the General Assembly convened that section 12-18B of the general statute be amended to expand the grants in lieu of tax payments by the state to include property owned by the Metropolitan District Commission for reimbursement to the municipality in which such properties are located. Basically, the statement of purpose to provide payments in lieu of taxes to towns for the MDC property. I know initially it was a premature letter that was submitted, but it was corrected by Corp Counsel Stone. And I appreciate that he took this action. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that basically what I'm looking for is for the state of Connecticut to place the properties, whether it's this city or any member towns, on their own pilot program, which basically they will be paying that pilot instead of the MDC. So basically not MDC. So I just want to clarify that, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your service, and thank you for that clarification. And yes, it was sent out. The clarification was sent out to all of the members, so thank you. Next, Commissioner request for consideration of future agenda items.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have two items that I would like handled in the future. First, if the district clerk can report on our conflict of interest statements and if we have anybody left over by the time we meet again that hasn't completed those. And second, I would also like staff to look at, with the way things are going in the federal government, how this potentially, any risk that we have with our budget, with our policies, with anything else that we can see that would severely impact us with the way things are starting to go. So just need a risk assessment on specifically any funding or regulations that we can expect or deregulations that we can
Looking for
expect.
an update through the CEO's
Correct.
report to us.
Correct. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Any others? Mr. Bush?
Just a small one. I'd like to follow up regarding the email having our personal emails removed and transitioning over to Outlook, and just to make sure that the notification emails will be sent. So I think that's really important. I've actually set up Outlook. I learned how to use it, but it is a completely separate place to go, and it's nice to have that email tickler. I just want to make sure that gets sent out.
That'll be part of the update for next meeting.
Thank you.
I think we're still within
the 60 days.
timeline, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Salemi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have, with respect to requests for future agenda items, I have two things. One is I noticed that this evening we have, I think for the first time, public comments relative to agenda items, and then we have independent consumer advocate comments and questions relative to agenda items. And I want to make sure I understand that. I thought that this would be fine if it's going to give the independent consumer advocate an opportunity to come before us in any one of the committees as well, not just the district board, but to make some comments. But my understanding is that it's the same as public comments, that commissioners aren't going to be able to have any kind of question or back and forth with them. So
Can I respond?
yeah, sure.
The reason I put that on the agenda was if the consumer advocate spoke during the public portion and we responded and we all of a sudden we had a give and take conversation, then if at some of these meetings where we have dozens of the public who come in and speak, they're going to want the same consideration. So I created a separate agenda item so that after the public speaks, the consumer advocate can speak and we can have a back and forth conversation with her.
Okay, so I understand your motivation for it, and I thought that, and I had sent in writing, explained that I thought that we could do something different, and so I will ask that we have it as an agenda item that I believe that the body should make the decision of how we're going to do that, and I do think if you look at the duties and responsibilities of the ICA, she left, right? Oh, there you are. Okay. You were sitting over here before. I thought you moved. Did you move or something? Okay. I'm sorry. But looking at the duties and responsibilities, the number one thing I think with respect to the district board is the ICA prepares quarterly reports to the MDC, the chief elected official of each town receiving service from MDC and the Consumer Council. So it's got to present those reports quarterly. And I thought that, if we had an opportunity to work with the ICA, that we could create, the whole board would have to do it, create an agenda item that says report from the independent consumer advocate. And then they can present a report, and then we could have that interaction on a report if that was an item. And it wouldn't suggest that we're just talking to someone, someone else. So we can, I hope that the board can have that discussion, and we can decide how we want to do it, and I'll be happy as long as the board makes the decision. The second issue is the item itself, item number 15, commissioner request for consideration of future agenda items. So if you remember, that was commissioner comments and questions, so at the July 26, 2023 meeting, I asked that we determine how we wanted to change that, because people wanted to change. It had been there, and some people thought that it created issues or problems, let people continue to speak on issues that were already decided and so forth. So I asked that we could, if we would do something with it as a board, and it was referred from, I think, PP&I to the district board. And the district board discussed it briefly and then referred it to the government committee. And on October of last year, went to the government committee, and that was a canceled meeting. The October meeting was canceled. So it was an agenda item then, and I'd like to see it become an agenda item so we can actually have participation in from the government committee and from the board on what we want to do with that item. I know you explained recently that if a commissioner says, like I did tonight, I'd like an agenda item, just because I said that, it's not a guarantee that it's going to be an agenda item. I think if it's not going to be, somebody should tell me, and then it would be, up to me to make a motion, try to get a second, and get an item put on a future agenda. But I think we can take care of it in a better way than that if we could. And so if we could put it back on the agenda of the government committee so they can discuss it. I'm not sure why it went there, but it did. It was referrals. So it was non-debatable. I couldn't ask why, and it was non-debatable. Got referred to government committee. So if they can do that, I'd appreciate it, and we can talk about it again. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Salemi. Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Hold on. Anyone else? Now, since we've completed our work and the agenda is complete, we are now adjourned.
Cheers.